Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley, and I'm joined by Ryan McGinley this morning. We're here to chat through all the latest Celtic news and events. It was a positive weekend all in. Ryan got through another 4-0 victory at home, kind of closing the points gap to Hearts a little bit at the top of the Scottish Premiership. Nothing really to complain about over the weekend. It was a good job all in yesterday.
Yeah, certainly. Apart from the injury to Sarachi that we'll get into probably. Apart from that, I mean, 8 goals in 2 Scottish Premiership games. It's pretty good going in terms of domestic form at the moment. You couple in that with the fact that Celtic got through to the League Cup final, but they're scoring goals. Michelin aside, it's been a pretty successful interim tenure for Martin O'Neill, and yeah, they got the job done yesterday, and thankfully they got the job done when Hearts slipped up as well, so 2 points closer to where Celtic need to be. But yeah, I'm fairly happy with what transpired yesterday at Celtic Park.
Okay, before we get into all the issues, which there are many coming out of yesterday, just a word from our sponsors. It's Simply Furniture, located in Hillington, Glasgow. They're an independent brand dedicated to bringing luxury and contemporary style into homes across the UK. With over a decade of experience, they meticulously source only the finest pieces, curated for quality, comfort and timeless design. Their dedicated team ensure your furniture is delivered with care right to your doorstep. And if you want to see their range up close, you can visit their showroom in Hillington, Glasgow, and mention the Celtic Way to get a special in-store discount with links below in the description. Ryan, okay, so my big thoughts coming out of that yesterday, I was just thinking, especially with what Martin O'Neill said in his post-match press conference, that could be Martin O'Neill's last ever game at Celtic, his last ever game at management. There's all kind of a lot of issues around this. It doesn't seem like anything is particularly imminent at Celtic. There's no real... It doesn't seem like there's a massive sense of urgency for Celtic to appoint a new manager permanently. But just going off what Martin O'Neill said yesterday, I'm going to bring in a couple of his comments of what he said about the Celtic job. So Martin O'Neill's going back to London in the early part of this week, and he seemed in the dark on whether he's going to be in charge for the St Mirren game after the international break. And but you're saying he's in the dark. I don't know whether he actually is or not. He's saying that publicly anyway. But on the Celtic job, he said, I have to go back down to London again. I'm going to go into a darkened room and come out on Thursday and see, has this really happened? I should imagine at some stage or another during the course of next week, whether it be tomorrow, whether it be Saturday or Sunday of next week, that somebody will let me know what's happening. He was then asked about the kind of the stresses and the rigours of the Celtic job and whether he would even accept staying on a bit longer if it was offered to him. I'm going to read out the exact phrasing of the question because I think the phrasing of the question is important for the context of the answer. So the question was from one of the journalists in his press conference: if the club say to you in the middle of the week, can you stay on for another few weeks until Christmas, the New Year, until the end of the season, would you have the conversation? Would you stay on for a period? And Martin O'Neill said to that, I really don't know. It's a young man's game, and I'm almost talking myself out of this here, but it's been tough, All the things that I kind of thought I knew about it have come to fruition. The strength of the side, what I thought I saw from a distance, the European football, that side of stuff, where you want to be and what has happened to the football club, I suppose, since Bayern Munich, it's all of those things. But if you're asking me, and then he said, Riley, well, how do I look? Not great, not great. So, I mean, there's just a sense there that, even if Celtic, offer him a kind of extended interim period, is Martin O'Neill going to accept that? I think it's a fair question to ask. And I guess, Ryan, my point is it's kind of all up in the air at the moment.
Yeah, I can't believe I was agreeing with what Hugh Keevins had to say yesterday on Super Scoreboard, coming back from the game yesterday, listening. He said that I think everybody just needs to be aware of what's happening, what's transpiring at Celtic. If Martin O'Neill is going to be staying on until, whether it's the end of the season, whether it's until January, whether it's only like another couple of weeks, people have got to be in the know about that. It's important. Celtic have got an AGM coming up as well, and if Martin O'Neill's still in charge and there's not been any further progress on who the next manager, who the next permanent manager is going to be, then they're very likely going to face questions from the support, from the shareholders, and that's a problem in itself. They'll want to have got that sorted by the time the AGM comes around. I would assume and hope. Those. You don't know what to take from Martin O'Neill at some point. You don't know if he's being humorous. I think that regardless of what he says, he's always quite entertaining when he talks to the media. I've found that out myself over the past 2 weeks or so listening to him. It's that quite candid from him, saying it's a young man's game, talking about how football's changed, talking about, you know, the reality of the squad as well. He mentioned Bayern Munich and the way the squad has been since then, or the way it's went, and he's been quite honest about that. And I think that's the one thing that you can take from this tenure, as well as it being quite successful on the park so far, apart from Midfield, of course. He's just injected a bit of honesty into the role, which has been badly needed over the past couple of months or so. You know, will Brendan Rodgers leave? Won't he leave? Martin O'Neill's just playing it down the middle with everything. And I think that's really, really refreshing. Unfortunately, I don't feel as if the club are the same at the moment. I think they need to shed light on what's going on in the managerial hunt. I would hope in the upcoming week and a half that we learn more about who the next Celtic manager is going to be. That's in an ideal world, of course, and hopefully they can get the person in that they want. But for me, I think that was a good end point yesterday for me personally, and I would hope that Celtic can bring in the next manager in the next week or so to really push forward.
Yeah, another kind of point that people were making over the weekend, Martin O'Neill was also spotted at the St Mirren game on Saturday evening with Mark Fotheringham. He played that down. He said he's just doing his job, and obviously covering the basis of, you know, if he is going to be in charge, then it would have made sense for him to check out that match, and obviously for decisions that might need to be made after an international break with regard to the team. So I'm not reading too much into that. What I'm reading into is that I don't think... I'm not sure if at 10 o'clock this morning when we're recording this and going live with this, I'm not sure if Celtic know whether Martin O'Neill's going to be in the dugout for the St Mirren match or not. And I think that's maybe the reality of the situation, and that, you know, this is ongoing, and, you know, they're looking for a new permanent manager, but is there an outstanding candidate out there who can come in this period? I think, you know, the slight concern I have is if Celtic do offer him to stay on, whether he's going to accept it or not. He's got the bug. I think you can sense that. But again, he's talking about the challenges there. He's talking about the kind of toll it can take. The schedule is very heavy after an international break. There's no more international breaks for a good period. So it's going to be weeks and months of a heavy schedule, midweek to weekend. And that's quite intense. You know, it's intense for players, as we know at the moment with all the injuries. It's intense for managers as well and coaching staff. And Martin O'Neill would have to be up for it. And I think he's done a great job. He's done a great job of stabilising Celtic after the Brendan Rodgers situation. I don't think it was any guarantee that it was going to be stabilised after Brendan Rodgers resigned and the way it was heading, and the games against Dundee, the game against Hearts. Celtic were in danger of seriously unravelling. And I think that stabilisation has been actually really, really important. I think, obviously, the Michelin game is fresh in people's minds as well. Nobody's happy about that. But domestically, 2-4-0 wins at home and the League Cup semi-final win. Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have done a great job in stabilising Celtic and just preparing Celtic for what's now coming next. And 7 points behind with a game in hand, taking to 4 points. You're playing Hearts at Celtic Park in a few weeks. It's manageable now, Ryan, whereas, you know, at the point of Rodgers walking out or just before he walked out, nothing really seemed manageable. And I guess that's the main positive of the last fortnight or so.
Yeah, this cluster of games, I'm quite glad that Celtic have kind of eliminated that 3 points that they lost to Hearts at Tynecastle, and they can focus on what they've got to do between now and the end of the season to come back and overtake Hearts and keep Rangers at arm's length, essentially. But yeah, I would agree that Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have done a great job at stabilising. I do also agree with the point that it could have went the other way, and it still could go that way. I think it's important to stress that, because you look at that fixture list between after the international break and what it's pretty much non-stop until March. You know, give or take a couple of 3 weekdays. You know, you'll have a couple of 7-day breaks in between games, but apart from that, it's hectic, and that can take its toll on an older manager as well, playing every 3 games. As much as he was talking about the hectic schedule, it's only going to get more hectic as the weeks go on. So if Celtic can find somebody that's willing to come in and take on that load and take on the rigours of what the upcoming few months of the season are going to be like, then brilliant. But if they can't get their ideal candidate, then I don't see them rushing in for the sake of it and just appointing somebody. I'd much rather Celtic take their time with this and get their number one choice or a preferred candidate, rather than rushing in and getting a permanent manager just for the sake of it, if you get me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that to an extent as well. I mean, just immediately after the international break, away to St Mirren, who St Mirren are a good side at home, and they'll give Celtic a tough game that night. They've got St Mirren away, Feyenoord away, Hibs away, like immediately after the international break. Now, again, there has been positivity of late, but Falkirk and Kilmarnock at home aren't the toughest of league fixtures. They'll be two of the easier league fixtures that Celtic play at home this season. Granted, they beat Rangers at Hampden, and that was a big result. But St Mirren, Feyenoord and Hibernian away is a significant ramp up in kind of Celtic's schedule from a strength perspective, not even just, the busy nature of it. Then after that, it's Dundee at home, Hearts at home, and Roma at home. So it's like three big away matches, then three big home matches against teams that have beaten Celtic recently and against Roma. I mean, just that 6-block fixture, regardless of how it extends into the rest of December and January, that's a massive 6-game block that will be, again, defining for Celtic in the trajectory of their season. And yeah, it's tough. It'll be tough for Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney if they're in charge. It would be tough for a new manager if they come in and they're in charge. And I don't know, if you're a manager and you're looking at that schedule, you're coming in mid-season, you're thinking that's a hard thing to start with, Ryan.
It is, but it's also a way. It should be looked upon as a positive if you're a manager coming in, and if you win those games, you've automatically got that galvanisation between yourself, the players, and the support. It's an early way to build connections and trust between all those different sectors. So you can look at it one way, and you can look at it the other way. It is daunting. It is daunting fixtures. Feyenoord, Roma, and Europa League. Those are. In other years, those are Champions League ties against Roma and Feyenoord. Good teams are coming up against Roma. Went to Ibrox last week and easily dispatched of Rangers. It was 2 going on 3 or 4. They took the foot off the gas. They're a good side under Gasperini. We know all about Gasperini from his time at Atalanta. Feyenoord are always a good side as well, with good youngsters coming through constantly. Those domestic games away from home, I think every game is tough at the moment when you don't know what Celtic are going to turn up in matches. You don't know what sort of form they're going to have coming into a game, how they're going to play. And against a team like Hibs, especially at home, who are quite strong at home, and the table doesn't lie. I believe they're in third place at the moment, and they deserve to be there because they've got goals all over their team and they're quite a consistent outfit. It's a difficult game. All these games are hard when Celtic aren't at their best, which they're not at the moment. They're still working to get back into some sort of form. But for any new manager coming in, I see it as an opportunity to really galvanise everybody to get on the one ship, basically.
Yeah, and I guess, the big news coming out of yesterday was obviously Marcelo Sirache, hamstring injury, going down. He didn't go quite stretchered off. The stretcher did come on. He managed to get up and walk off on his own power, but he looked frustrated. He looked a bit upset with it. Doesn't look particularly great. He'll be out for a few weeks in a best case scenario. Not ideal given Celtic's current situation across the squad. Then, unfortunately, in the post-match press conference, kind of Martin O'Neill dropping a bit of a bombshell, really. Obviously, people have known that Callum Osmond suffered a hamstring injury. People know that Alistair Johnston's been out for a bit. I think the last we heard on Alistair Johnston was maybe Brendan Rodgers saying it wasn't as bad as they first thought. But I think subsequent scans showed a tear in Alistair Johnston's hamstring. And long story short, Alistair Johnston and Callum Osmond both going for surgery tomorrow on their hamstrings, and will keep them out for months, Ryan. Surgery on a hamstring's no joke and will take a long time for recovery. So that is a significant blow, especially in the case of Alistair Johnston, who's such a firm fixture on that right flank. I think people were hoping that he might be back in the next few weeks. He might be potentially available until after the international break, but Alistair Johnston being out for months, I mean, it is really a significant blow, I think, to Celtic, especially, he could be missing for a large chunk of the season now.
I think if you were to ask most Celtic supporters their top 5 Celtic players, I think it'd be pretty consistent that he would be in people's top 5. That's how important he is, both on and off the pitch. It's not just what he brings on the pitch, it's that leadership role that I'll keep on talking about. I think he's one of the... it's Brendan Rodgers spoke about it shortly before he left. In fact, it was Sean Maloney that spoke about it in the press conference. He said that Alistair Johnston's one of the core leaders of the group alongside James Forrest, Cal McGregor, Cameron Carter-Vickers. So missing those two in particular, and Cameron Carter-Vickers and Alistair Johnston on the pitch and what they bring off the pitch, is a big blow for Celtic, and it's up to other players to come in and step up and be those leaders in his place. But it's disappointing for Callum Osman because of the high of the League Cup semi-final to the low of, get a further high of getting named in that squad due to that rule for Cameron Carter-Vickers to then get injured himself in that game. He's had the highest of highs and then the lowest of lows, and I really hope that he can bounce back from that injury, because he looked as if he was picking up a head of steam and getting some game time at Celtic finally. But it's more of a blow. Admittedly, it is more of a blow not having Johnson in the team. He's your first choice right back. And just what he brings to the side is unmatched in that area, to be honest with you.
I think just the depth behind Johnston isn't looking particularly great. Obviously, Anthony Ralston has his limitations. Colby Donovan, I think people were a fan of him, but against Hearts struggled a bit, and has obviously been taken out of the limelight by Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney for a reason. And then just, he's developing as well as a player. He's still learning. He's not the finished product, although I think he looks like a good prospect and he has potential. It is still potential. And Jemai Simpson-Pusey, who, look, I thought he had a good debut yesterday. I thought it was solid, and he did, he was pretty efficient with his passing. He was a presence on the right flank, but he's not a right back, and I think it's obvious he's not a right back. He's built as a centre back. He is a centre back. He's every bit a centre back, and it's not a knock against him saying he's not a right back. He just isn't, right? And I think that was clear. He's certainly not an attacking right back, which is ideally what Celtic needs. So it looks like Ralston will be kind of how Celtic move forward in that position, unless they start to kind of build Colby Donovan's confidence up again, where he can start to make an impact too.
Yeah, I was quietly impressed with Jemai Simpson-Pusey. Martin O'Neill's comments after the game as well, saying he could have hooked him after 4 minutes. I thought, you're being... I know he was being a little bit... He was joking about, but he did take time to settle into the game. But I thought after that, after a bit of a shaky start, I thought he did okay. And he got a really nice reception from the Celtic support at Celtic Park, which was great to see. And a nice wee nod from Callum McGregor as well, congratulating on making his Celtic debut. I like to see that. I'm glad, because it will be tough for him not playing a single game, not playing a single minute up until November the 9th. So to come into that can be quite daunting, regardless of the opposition, regardless of the dominance that Celtic had in the game. It would have been daunting for him. I think that he's a right back in a Pep Guardiola system of yesteryear, of a couple of years ago, when they would play 4 centre backs in their back 4. But I don't think he's a right back for Celtic, not whatsoever. I think that he could play in a 3 if you play a 3-5-2, maybe on that right hand side. And I noticed that yesterday when watching him, despite being on the right hand side, he liked to move in centrally a lot in the game. That's where he's most comfortable. So that could potentially be an option for either Martin O'Neill or any new manager coming in. You've got somebody that can play in a back 3 and who's mobile enough to play that role, to go up and down the park. I was quietly impressed by him. Hopefully he can build on that and get some more game time. But I think that he can be pretty pleased with his efforts. Just on Ralston, he had a tough game on Thursday night. It was a really... I think that's putting it lightly, to be honest with you. But I thought he did okay when he came on. There was a great pass that he had that nearly came off to Daizen Maeda and at the end of the game. But you miss Johnson in that area, is basically what I'm saying, long story short.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the depth on the other side too. Obviously, Kieran Tierney is there, and that's great. But what is Tierney's, physical, what's his fitness basically to manage the schedule coming up? It's unrealistic, I think, to expect Tierney to play midweek and the weekend consistently for almost the full length of matches, just given the evidence of what we've seen on Tierney so far this season. And then you start to think, well, is it going to be Hayato Inamura again? Is he going to start to come to the fore again, Ryan? I mean, that's a wee lingering question in your mind. So that's a potential resurgence after an international break too.
See, and it's so weird. These players are so far out of the picture due to the amount of injuries that are occurring. Between that and maybe not having the required depth in some areas, you've got Yang coming onto the pitch. He kind of makes an appearance and then doesn't make an appearance for about 3 weeks. But he actually made a good contribution when he came on, because he won the penalty in the lead up to the 4th goal. Yang can do that. He's quite a quite a weird player to watch in that sense, because he's got that in him, that sort of running ability and his ability to take on his man, but he's also got so many deficiencies in his game, so you don't really know what to think of him. Just on the left back position, you forget that Hayato Inamura's there. You forget that Shin Yamada's there, and he was on the bench yesterday. Still didn't make it off the bench, but at least we saw him on a team sheet, But on Inamura, it's an opportunity for him if he can. Even just as squad depth as an option, it might come to that point that he needs to be in the in and around the team, or Liam Scales can cover at left back as well. Either way, it's not ideal, because I was really enjoying. Yesterday, I tweeted out that I was really enjoying what Sriracha was bringing.
Sriracha was good yesterday. I thought he looked good on that left flank. Combining with Tenekte, I thought he looked really good again. And that again, you're right. That's still a disappointment.
It was a poor pass from Tenekte that leads to the injury to Sriracha, because the ball's just not there to be won. It's too late for the overlap. Tenekte waits too long before passing. So Sriracha, and I'm not blaming Tenekte, because they were doing that 5 or 6 times before the injury occurred. It was just a little bit too late. The overlap wasn't there, and Sriracha stretched and clearly felt his hamstring. But I thought up until that point, he was the best player in the park for Celtic. And there was a real frustration in amongst the crowd when he was brought off, because people were understanding what he was bringing to the team, what he was bringing to that left-hand side. And it's really disappointing for him, because I think if it was on form at the moment, Sriracha would be playing over Kieran Tierney.
Yeah, and I think, he downed his place in the team yesterday, undoubtedly, for me. Look, we'll move on to more of the positives against Kilmarnock, of course. We've been, I don't know if it's just because it's Monday morning, but we've been full of a little bit of anxiety this morning regarding the manager's job and injuries, etc. Comments and questions, leave them, and we'll do some comments and questions at the end of the show too. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to the channel as well. It's free. You just click a button below. I know a lot of people watch this who aren't actually subscribed to the channel. We'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and help us grow and move forward as well. And you get to stay up to date with all of our videos too. So Ryan, positives yesterday. I think there were many, and again, it's about the stabilisation. But again, Johnny Kenny popping up with another goal, kind of proving to be Celtic's poacher. Celtic badly needed a centre forward to step up and start scoring fairly regularly. Yes, it's been over a fairly short period, but Johnny Kenny's shown early promise that he can do that now. There's been a lot of question marks around Johnny Kenny and his ability to score regularly for Celtic. And I think 4 goals in his last 4 games is a good return at this stage. And again, it's another platform for him to then move on and build after the international break. Obviously, it wasn't a fantastic finish or anything. It was a very close range. He latched onto the end of Rio Tate's cutback, but he has the knack of being in the right place at the right time. He stuck it away, and again, he's someone who'll be brimming with confidence at the moment. I was happy to see him getting a score. I just want to see Johnny Kenny to score a goal every other game, and I think that would be enough for what we're expecting from him at this moment. 22 years old, still kind of learning how to be a Celtic striker. If we can get a goal every other game, and he's got a better rate than that at the moment over the last wee while, then that's a real positive.
Yeah, I was really impressed with him last week against Rangers. Not just his finishing with the header, but his link-up play as well. I mean, you saw a little bit of that yesterday, but not as much. But he was in the right place at the right time, as you said, to score that goal, and that's strikers
and hit the post as well, Ryan, with a good shot.
Yeah, absolutely. But strikers are going to be judged on goals, especially at Celtic. If you're a striker playing for Celtic, you've got to be scoring goals, and 4 goals in his last 4 games is a good return for him, for a guy that's still learning his trade. Martin O'Neill's quick to say that in his press conferences as well. He's still learning all about football, but senior football. It's clear that move to Shamrock Rovers was beneficial to him, because he was scoring goals at a regular rate, and that he's been able to transfer that to his early career at Celtic, which is good news. Good that Celtic have a focal point up front that can put the ball in the back of the net when required, and he did his job yesterday, so no complaints with his performance whatsoever.
I thought Rio Tate, one of his better games in a while as well. I thought he was pretty good in the middle of the park there, and I thought he was good. Luke McCowan had that kind of freer role of moving forward to kind of support Kenny, but Rio Tate did a very good job in the Celtic midfield yesterday, and I've been quite critical of him this season. And again, it's only one game against one of the teams that are struggling in the Scottish Premiership at the moment, but if you get a game out of Hatate like that regularly, then there's no issue. I guess it's just whether it's going to be regular or a one-off, Ryan.
Yeah, if Rio Hatate drops a 7 out of 10, Celtic are usually winning the game, because he's that talented on the ball. I think when Hatate's purring, then Celtic are generally okay in games because he can make things happen. He got the assist. It's good. It's a good second chance assist for him for the first goal. I don't know what the Kilmarnock player's doing, to be honest with you. He kind of slips and Hatate gets the chance. It's a good cutback into Kenny and it's a good finish. One thing I would say though is at the end of the game, Hatate was not happy that he didn't get the penalty. There's a little bit of a... I don't know if... I could only see it from up looking down, but Hatate looked pretty keen on taking the penalty. I've got to admit it wasn't a good penalty during the week against Midfield. I know he scored it, but the goalkeeper maybe he got a palm on it and maybe should have saved it. But when Engels is on the pitch, Engels is the penalty taker, and
Yeah,
and
that's
I
the
think McGregor made that
hierarchy, isn't it, Ryan?
abundantly clear.
Yeah.
And
And that's been the defined hierarchy for a wee while. So, like, I understand Hatate's frustrated with that, but you want to see Engels taking that because
he is the most
his nickname isn't
emotional
Pengels
football
for no
player.
reason, Ryan.
Yeah, I always have to. No, I always have to not hit back at people. That's maybe too strong a term. I need to correct them when people say that Hatate doesn't care. If anything, he cares too much. He's a very, very emotional player, and he can't hide how he feels on the football pitch. He gets frustrated easily. If things aren't going his way, he gets frustrated, but he cares. And it was a really good performance from him yesterday. I thought he was the pick of the three in the midfield.
Yeah, I do too. Brown Warrior making a point that I was just about to bring up, so good timing, Brown Warrior. I thought Engels up the quality when he came on. Instant energy in midfield. He's back on his game again for me. I mean, that pass. I mean, he's had a few over the last few games. I think the instruction from Celtic has been, or from Sean Maloney and Martin O'Neill has been, look, just be a little bit more direct and stop just passing sideways all the time, basically. And I think Engels has been one of the key ones who's taken that on. He's been trying these booming, raking balls forward on multiple occasions over the last few matches. It really came off for him for the Maeda goal. Fantastic pass for Daisy Maeda. Took about 5 players out of the game. And again, a fantastic finish from Maeda as well. It was good to see his confidence high in that regard too. But that was a fantastic combination that kind of highlighted what Engels can bring to this team. Again, with Engels, Ryan, it's about consistency. It's all well doing a good coming off the bench against Kilmarnock, but we need that consistently from Engels. We'll get that consistently from him. He'd be a fantastic asset in that midfield. I thought it was a really good pass, and I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just like, I want that more from Engels. And I thought he was good coming off the bench yesterday. And again, that's pleasing to see. You want Engels to be looking good in this Celtic team.
Yeah, he's clearly a talent. We all know that he's got talent. It's all about the consistency or lack of consistency in his game. He'll have a good game and then maybe drop a 5 or a 6 out of 10. If he was consistent, he wouldn't be out of the Celtic team because he's that talented in the midfield. You knew instantly with that pass, the cutting pass, the defender was already scrambling to sort it out because he knew there was danger. He knew that Maeda was going to run in behind and get on the end of that, and it was a really good finish. Unfortunately for the Kilmarnock defender, fortunately for us, of course, he couldn't get anywhere near it, and Maeda was through on goal, and it was a great assist. 2 goal contributions in 10-15 minutes of play from Engels. That's a good day's work or a good half shift or whatever you want to call it. But he made an impact, and he put a little bit more gloss on the scoreline, because I think at 2-0 people would have been like, oh, job done, but it wasn't. It was convincing, but not in the scoreline. But scoring those 2 late goals, the assist from Engels for the third, and then the penalty for the fourth, put a little bit of gloss on it, and it also lessened the goal difference, because Hearts' goal difference is plus 19 at the moment.
Yeah.
Putting an extra 4. I think Celtic are on plus 9, so they're 10 goals behind. Having that plus 4 can help, especially if it's going to be tight in the league this year. If it is going to be tight in the league this year, then if they're scoring goals in home games, that 8-goal swing that they've had over the past 2 games can only help their situation going forward.
Yeah, it does feel like Celtic have just got to grips a little bit with like the situation that we're in. They were in a real hole, and I think, as I was saying, in the league, I think they're starting to climb out of it a little bit. And I think, obviously, some of the matches coming up, the away games, I think are going to be massive, because we don't really know whoever's in charge after the international break. We don't know if like this kind of little resurgence is going to manifest itself away in the league as well. We need to, against St Mirren and against Hibs, we're going to find that out quite quickly. Just to bring in some viewer comments then, Jay saying on Martin O'Neill, he's saying, I think he's enjoying it and would want it. He's playing it down, of course, but that's Martin O'Neill. He's a winner, he's got the bug, and you will see this as an opportunity to win the league back. 2005 will still hurt for him. Yeah, I have sensed, obviously, that he's enjoying it. It does feel like he's got the bug. I guess it's just a wee bit of a question mark regarding kind of what is actually going to happen here. And to be honest, anything can happen just based on some of Celtic's decisions over the last 6 months. Plunge McNugget, kind of Martin will be here till the end of the season. Desmond and Scronies are too lazy to do the work on hiring a new guy. Knutson, you're having a laugh. He's not convinced that the manager situation is going to move forward particularly well. DQ saying tactics have been so much better, quicker, direct with playing to risk to create chances. That is with several different midfield combinations, hence the number of goals scored. I don't think anyone can argue with that. I mean, I think Michelin decide, which is what it is. I think everyone expected that Celtic would probably be beaten by Michelin. I think the shock was just the manner of the collapse and how it all unfolded in that first half. These goals and clusters things, I know you and Tony talked about this on Friday, but it's just been a devastating trend for Celtic in Europe over the last while. But I think generally you can say that Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have done a great job. I'm not stressed out about. I know you're saying, look, this is the good time for Celtic to change, but if Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney were in that dugout against St Mirren, it wouldn't be a complete disaster for Celtic, would it, Ryan? I mean, I agree with you. I think it is the time for Celtic need to get on with the long-term planning job, and I think this January transfer window is a big part of that. And I think you really need a new manager in to start to shape that somehow. Obviously, difficult in a short time period, but to shape that somehow, you need a manager kind of overseeing that. But I'm not going to be pulling my hair out if it's Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney in the dugout against St Mirren.
Especially if the preferred candidate, there's names that have been thrown about, etc. If the preferred candidate doesn't want to come straight away, and then they have to wait until January, I'm kind of in two minds. I want the preferred candidate in. I want a permanent manager in for Celtic, because I feel that the league is, everything is so important. Everything's all still to play for this season, and with a manager there can be a turnaround. But it wouldn't be a disaster if Maloney and O'Neill were in place for the St Mirren game. Actually, there might even be less of a worry, because you know that they've been in the post for the past couple of weeks and they've been working with the team, whereas if you've got a new manager, he's still learning about his players, and that can then sometimes bring a wee bit of disconnect, because he's still getting used to a new batch of players to work under. It's one of those ones, if the right opportunity comes around and the manager that they want is available just now, then bring him in. By all means, bring him in. The sooner the better. But if their preferred option isn't available now and they have to wait a little bit longer, then I've got no issue for that, because this is an appointment that's got to last Celtic for the next 3-4 years, not the next couple of months. I'd rather they get the right person in.
That's true. Hazel Finn saying frustrated yesterday that Shin didn't even get the last 20 minutes. Not sure what's going on there. Needs to be integrated to the team now. He was on the bench yesterday, but not featuring. I'm a little bit worried about that, because I mean, there's a couple of players who haven't featured really since Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have come in, which makes me wonder about what's going on in terms of how they are doing on a day-to-day basis in training. Paulo Bernardo's another one who doesn't seem to be getting a sniff at the moment. Shin Yamada, again, he's kind of nowhere really, Ryan, and hopefully he can. I mean, Sean Maloney gave him a tiny bit of a name drop in an interview he gave with Celtic TV last week. But ultimately they chose Callum Osmond over him for a reason, to play that secondary role. Even when he was on the bench yesterday, he didn't get on. It just seems like nobody at Celtic's really convinced about Shin Yamada, which is unfortunate to say.
Yeah, and it's not as if he's a young player. He's 25 years old. He's been playing in the J League for a good team in Kawasaki Frontale. So the fact that he's not really been, I mean, he was quoted yesterday, but apart from that, he's been nowhere near the team as of late under two managers. Paulo Bernardo's an interesting one, because I thought that maybe with Brendan Rodgers being away, a new manager coming in, it could be a bit of a bounce for him. He could make his way into the starting lineup. It's been a very I'm not even going to say start season. It's been a very stop season for Bernardo. He's had no momentum whatsoever this season due to a number of issues, but it's just not happened for him whatsoever. I just wonder what his situation will be like if it continues to transpire this way, if he might look for an exit in January, because he's 23, 24 years old. He'll be wanting to play first team football, and unfortunately at this moment in time he's not getting first team football at Celtic. He's actually regressing, and that's disappointing for the player, whether that's a loan or a permanent. I'm not writing him off, but I'm only going with what I see
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
mean, we
seeing.
can always...
And I'm not seeing
Yeah,
Paolo Bernardo on the football pitch at the moment.
yeah. And just back to Shin Yamada, DQ saying he was warming up in the second half, he was desperate to get the call, so at least he wants to prove himself in the squad. Danny Boy saying never thought Shin might just might not be good enough. I guess that's kind of my point. That is the worry. I don't know if he's good enough or not because I've not seen enough of him. People at Celtic are seeing him on a day-to-day basis. Two different coaching staffs now don't seem to be giving him too many minutes, and that does make me concerned about him going forward, I have to say. Ryan, any other points you want to make from me yesterday? Any other positives or negatives that came out of the day? We've discussed Johnny Kenny, we've discussed Rio Tate, Annie Engels to an extent. I guess I would just from my perspective, I thought they didn't have too much to do, but Austin Trusty and Liam Scales looking pretty solid at the moment. Mitchell in the side looking pretty solid.
Bringing balance to the defence, and there was talk about there being imbalance when those two play. These are the two that kept a clean sheet in Bergamo against Atalanta. I'm not surprised at what they're doing because they seem to have a really good understanding. I think Austin Trusty, despite that silly challenge that he made at Hampden, he's not really put a foot wrong since he's came back into the side. He was brilliant at Hampden, really did well to stabilise himself, particularly in the second half when there could have been a lot of eyes on him. I thought he was really, really good yesterday against a physical side. Yes, Kilmarnock didn't really have a lot in the game, but every header that was there to be won, Austin Trusty won it. And I think he brings a calm persona to the back that's been sorely needed over the past couple of weeks. It just baffles me how he's not been playing, to be honest with you, because I think he brings so much more positives than negatives. I think he makes Scales a better player alongside him at the moment. I'm delighted for him because he seems like a decent guy off the pitch. He covers himself well in the media as well. I thought some of his comments over the past couple of days have been pretty good, but coping mechanisms and the like. Yeah, I've been impressed with what he's doing both on and off the pitch, and hopefully he can keep it going. And a deserved recall back to the USA national team, and in good timing too, because there's only another couple of squads before the World Cup. So if he's back in the reckoning, then he'll be thinking, I can get myself into this side for the World Cup. That's a big one on home soil as well.
He's probably been, if you're looking at all the players in the squad, I think maybe Austin Trusty's been the big winner of this kind of transition to this interim period. He was nowhere under Rodgers. I mean, I think in hindsight, we're looking at the decision not to play Austin Trusty at Tynecastle as a major error from Brendan Rodgers. People called out at the time, but subsequently, with the benefit of hindsight, that just looks to have been a fairly abysmal call from Brendan Rodgers, frankly. And I'm glad Austin Trusty's kind of proven himself. He's stepped up. He seems like he's showing a bit of leadership in that, and to do that when you've been kind of not been involved at all, I think shows a bit of character, and I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see Austin Trusty's emergence over the last few games, and long may it continue. The last time I looked at the USA squad, I'm sure their centre backs were all about 45, so maybe he does have a
Tim
chance.
Ream's about 50.
Yeah. So maybe he does have a wee sneaky chance of getting in there. Although it has been difficult, I think, for Trusty or Carter Vickers to get a consistent game for America. So listen, a lot going on at Celtic. I mean, I'm expecting something to happen during this international break, Ryan. It can't just be totally dead, surely. Hopefully, anyway, because I don't have any annual leave coming up, and I hope something happens.
Yeah, I think, good or bad, something's going to happen whether a manager rejects the chance to become Celtic manager. I think there will be more on that. We'll probably hear more about a short list about people that. I mean, we heard that last week to an extent, but I think you'll get a more solid idea of the direction that Celtic are looking to go in manager wise. I just hope they can get the right candidate in. It's important, and I make the point again. This isn't until the end of the season. This is for the next 3-4 seasons for me, and something can be built both domestically and in Europe. So, if they can't get in the right person just now, then I'm okay with Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney staying because they're doing a decent job just now. But if you can get your preferred candidate in, then get them in as soon as possible. Get them in ahead of time. And that'll only benefit the club moving forward if they've got a permanent solution in the door already. If they can do it in this international break, then absolutely brilliant, and we'll cover that accordingly. But we'll see how it goes.
And I guess we're also waiting to hear news on Marcello Sarace as well. I think that will be crucial. He'll be getting scans over the next few days as well. It seems the kind of it took a while for the Johnston kind of injury to manifest itself in like he needs
Yeah.
surgery. So I guess it'll take a week or so for Sriracha as well. Again, as I say, I think I initially had hope for Johnston, and it just turned out that he had something a bit of a deeper problem. Okay, Ryan, thank you for joining us this morning. Thanks everyone for joining us in the live chat. Leave your comments below on what you want to see from Celtic during this international break. There's going to be lots going on. We do have an AGM at the end of it as well, so there's a fair amount going on and off the pitch. We'll have full coverage, of course, across the YouTube channel and celticway.co.uk as well for all the latest news and analysis. Please check us out. Subscribe to the channel. It is free, as I say. And if you want to give us a subscription to the website too, that's the biggest thing you can do to support us. If you're a fan of what we do on a daily basis, the biggest thing you can do is subscribe to us on the website, which is only £1 for 6 months of access, ad-free Celtic news, lots of exclusive interviews and features and analysis and really good stuff. So please consider doing that if you feel like you want to. Ryan, thanks for joining us as always. We'll see everyone again. We'll be back tomorrow morning. We'll see you again next time on the Celtic Way.